Some say that we are forcing our curls when we manipulate them with styling techniques. But is it really too much if we're simply bringing out our curls' full potential? If you're not loving your curls, maybe it's not just your hair. It could be that you just haven't styled them yet to their full potential. Today, I'm walking you through an easy, low manipulation and low effort styling routine and comparing it to my usual high manipulation routine, while breaking down the differences between the effort versus the reward so you can decide what's actually worth it. My name is Gina and welcome back to my channel. Here we talk all things naturally curly. I love breaking things down in simple, easy to follow steps. I love talking about the science of hair and really helping you problem solve with your curls. And I'm also a curl coach who helps my clients bring out their curls' full potential and helping them understand if they're already at that potential or if they need some tweaks in their routine. So I styled my curls today doing the opposite of most of the techniques that I usually do, and this is how it turned out. So let's get into the routine. I'm going to be doing the same styling routine as I did recently with my higher manipulation routine, using the same products, really trying to minimize variability here. I'm just going to mist my hair down with some water so that way my hair is evenly wet, and then I'm going to go in with my heat protectant. Let's first chat about what is curl manipulation. Curl manipulation is when we intentionally shape or enhance our natural curl pattern. Whether that's through finger coiling or brush styling, anything that really helps to bring out your natural curl pattern that you have. Going in with my Bouclème Curl Defense Heat Protectant Spray. This is the same one that I used last time. So if curl manipulation is simply enhancing your curl pattern, then what's the issue with that? Well, the debate comes in when people say that you are just forcing your curls, or you're just doing too much, or that's way too much effort. Why can't you just let your hair be as is? And others like myself like to say that it's simply getting the most out of your curls. So what do you think? Is it too much, or do you feel like it's just helping your curls reach their full potential? With anything, it's not completely black and white. There are pros and cons of both that we will go through, but it doesn't have to be one or the other. You can incorporate some of both depending on the time that you have available in your routine. So I'm still going to section off my hair just so I get more of an even coverage of my gel. But if you want an even lower effort routine, you can totally just rake in your gel without sectioning. For my gel today, I'm using the Ouidad Advanced Climate Control Stronger Hold Gel. This is the same gel that I used last time in my routine that I'm sharing with you that is a higher manipulation routine. This is my favorite Stronghold gel, and I feel like it gives me the most accurate representation of my best results. And I really want to try and have like a good routine for this, even though I'm doing a completely different styling technique. So I'm just going in with the same amount of gel I usually use, about a nickel size amount. While I rake this in, let's get into the pros and cons of curl manipulation techniques. One of the biggest pros is that curl manipulation obviously brings out your curls' full potential. Some of you might not even know what your curls potential is if you've never really tried specific styling techniques. If you've only done lower manipulation techniques and you're not liking your results, then it's worth trying them to see if you could get more out of your curls and maybe you would like that better. It's all in what your preferences are. I'm just taking a little bit more gel because I can already feel my hair soaking that up. Curl manipulation techniques can also help increase the longevity of your curls. So the more defined and the more clumped your curls are, the longer they're going to last when it comes to holding their shape and also keeping the frizz tucked away. And it gives you more control over your results. That's the fun thing about curly hair is so malleable. It can be reshaped, it can be enhanced, so you can use different styling techniques to get the result that you want. Whereas if you just rake in your products and go, it's often a surprise about how your hair turns out. You might not have as much control over those results without doing anything to kind of help it out. One of the downsides to using manipulation techniques like brush styling or finger coiling is it can create an overdependence on that technique. You might not like your results without using them, so you end up feeling like you have to do that technique every single wash day, which is definitely the boat that I'm in. I really like my results with those techniques, and when I don't do them, I don't like my results. So then I feel like I have to do that every wash day or else it's a wasted wash day. It's obviously time consuming and takes effort to add in that extra step to enhance your curls. And in some cases, high manipulation techniques like brush styling could cause some some wear and tear on our hair and some stress on our hair. So when you are running a brush through your hair, that is tension, and any form of tension can chip away at our hair's cuticle, especially if your hair is very fragile or if you have damaged hair. Those of you with higher porosity hair that maybe bleach or color your hair, or you have some past heat damage, those hair types should really be careful with these techniques. But the tough thing is these manipulation techniques can really help that hair type really spring up. When you have more problematic hair, you need that help to actually get the curls to form, but you also don't want to cause damage. So it's one of those things where you have to pick and choose your battles, and if you like your results with it, then do more of those curl manipulation techniques, but be very mindful about breakage and try and not get too overly reliant on it. I didn't do any manipulation techniques. I basically just raked my product through, and then I am kind of just shaking the curls to let the curls form. I'm not going to do any crazy scrunching, but just a little bit, because again, anytime we are touching our hair or pulling on our hair, which is raking, it is going to change our hair shape. So unless if you want your hair to dry more elongated, you have to do something to kind of get it to bounce up. So you're probably wondering, well, what should you do then if there are these different pros and cons? But you have to just weigh those based on the goals of your hair and also your routine and the amount of time that you have. And again, it doesn't have to be all or nothing, or you don't have to pick a side. You could totally do both routines depending on the time that you have. Maybe on the weekends you put a little more effort into it so it lasts all week. But maybe when you have to do a midweek wash, you don't put as much effort into it. So now let's get into some of the low manipulation versus the high manipulation techniques so you can pick and choose what is worth your time and effort. Now I'm just applying some gel to the middle section here, and again, I'm just raking. But when it comes to applying your gel or your styling products, there's really not a way to apply your products to your hair without manipulating your hair at all. The only thing I can really think of is like glazing in your product like this. But that's not going to give you an even coverage of your gel, and you're not going to like your results at all. So I do feel like you need to actually rake in your products. The only other way you could get your products in is by only scrunching. So say if I didn't section my hair at all and I hadn't touched my hair since I got out of the shower, you could go in and just scrunch your product in, but that's also not going to give you coverage of your products at all. But that would probably be the lowest form of curl manipulation. I'm not doing that technique here. I'm still incorporating techniques that at least get the gel applied evenly. I'm just not going to do a bunch of styling techniques. And the main reason for that is, again, that gel coverage. I need to have all of my hair covered in gel because my hair is very frizz prone. I just caught myself finger coiling out of habit because this curl, let me backtrack, when I'm raking in some product like this, see how it just straightens out? So my instinct is to help it curl. Now I'm not forcing the curl, I'm just helping it take its natural curl pattern. So when you actually do that, now the curl pattern's able to come out. Our hair needs some help when we are raking or detangling or brushing through our hair, but I'm not going to finger coil. Let me go back to how it looked. Maybe if I just kind of shake it a little bit to kind of help it start to spiral. I'm sure you've seen my usual routines, but what I typically do when I'm sectioning my hair and applying products is I take my brush through the section, and then I gently brush style just to help the curls kind of clump and form up. I'm still doing my same amount of sections though as I usually do. That way the only variable that we're changing here is the actual styling techniques. So typically I would brush through this as I'm applying my gel because I don't know if you can tell, but there's a lot of wet frizz in here. This is my coarser high porosity section. It's more of a problem area. So I really need to use my hands to kind of smooth this out. If I just scrunch product in this section, it wouldn't tame any of that. It would be kind of like a webbed mess, like a lot of wet frizz within. So if I just scrunch gel in, it's sort of just locking it in kind of frizzy and tangly, but I need to smooth it out. So we can at least use our hands to smooth it out, even if I'm not fully manipulating the curl. So when it comes to styling techniques, what can we do that is lower manipulation? Well, just basic raking and then maybe kind of shaking the curls or kind of swinging them to get them to form will kind of help them bounce back up. If you want to still clump the curls, then I would recommend using just your hands to clump the curls. So when you're raking, you can just use your fingers, which is similar to the rake and shake technique. That's where you're raking in product, and then once you get to the end, you're kind of shaking it. But I still consider that curl manipulation because it is impacting the clumps. We're using some sort of tool, even if it's our hands, to help the curls form. We're not just leaving them as is. So some higher manipulation techniques would be heavily scrunching, so spending a lot of time really getting in there and scrunching the hair for a long period of time. Another one might be the praying hands technique that you usually see me do. I consider that kind of like a medium manipulation technique. I've actually talked about how that method might be great for those of you who don't want to brush style and you still want to clump your curls. So I would consider that sort of like medium amount of manipulation. And then there is finger coiling and brush styling. So those are the two techniques that definitely are higher manipulation techniques that I typically do. And it's usually in this section where I usually do those techniques because these are the curls that go in all different directions. They're also the tightest curls that I have on my head, and they're right here on the top. It's what everybody sees. It's also what really tends to get frizzy the next day if I don't help it out. But it does obviously take some extra time. I have talked about in the past how if you have any problem areas, you could just focus your efforts styling those problem areas instead of doing your entire head. So because I'm raking here, the curls are stretching out, so I need them to kind of go in some sort of direction instead of stretching out. So I'm just going to kind of shake them. But this is where I really want to finger coil because I'm seeing all of the different directions that are not being brought out. Usually where you see me go in and finger coil just to help all of these curls get back to their shape. But again, we're just going to leave them. And they definitely are taking more of a zigzag. Some of them are changing directions. So this is really difficult for the perfectionist in me. Curly hair tests my perfectionism all the time. I'm trying really hard to not worry about them looking perfect, but I just know that tomorrow they're probably not going to look as good. So I am going to show you my day 2 results, so stay tuned for that. This is really where the curls take lots of different directions. They're also very tight right here. If you have curls that are taking like a sharp zigzag, that probably indicates that you do have a pretty tight curl pattern, and if you finger coil it, it will bounce right up. Just to reiterate, a stretched out curl is not necessarily a bad curl, or it doesn't mean it's an issue. Some people might prefer their hair to look more natural and have less of those ringlets to it, or maybe you want to actually elongate your curls. That's where you would just rake it in and leave it like that. So one of the reasons I still section my hair is I want to have control over how it lays on top, so that way at least it's giving me scalp coverage back here and a little bit of volume. Otherwise, my hair will want to part all the way down the back. So again, styling techniques help you control your results. So I'm just going to break up the section lines, that way my scalp isn't showing. The next step that I usually do is microplopping and then adding extra gel. I don't really consider microplopping curl manipulation because the main reason I do this is to soak up excess water in my hair to speed up my dry time and to increase my hold because I usually will add an extra layer of gel. Now it does enhance the curl clumps and the spirals a little bit because you were scrunching, but a lower manipulation way to still do this would be to kind of scrunch your hair almost like you're blotting it to soak up that excess water, but not really scrunching from the ends to the roots. You could scrunch a little bit, and I still want to get root volume, so I'm just going to pinch the roots a little bit so that way I can scrunch all the way up. I don't want to over scrunch this section because it tends to really frizz up on me, but I'm just going to lightly scrunch underneath without doing a bunch of scrunching with the towel. And as you can see, it didn't really bounce up my curls that much doing that method. I'm just sort of scrunching or squeezing them as is. So now I usually add extra gel. I'm still going to do that step because that's not enhancing my curls. It's literally just taming the frizz that I just created. And it's also going to give me extra hold. If you've tried this Ouidad gel and you didn't get enough hold out of it, make sure you're applying enough, and then make sure you also do this extra step. This is also where I usually do praying hands technique to clump these stringy areas right here that I always have. These are my problem areas. And if you caught the last video I did on how to treat different areas, so higher porosity areas, problem areas, so that way it matches, that's where I usually use curl manipulation to try and blend it with the rest of my hair. But we're not doing that here. I'm just going to kind of rope in the product. I guess roping could also be another way to apply your product without manipulating. I didn't think about that one. Another thing I should have mentioned about applying your products by just scrunching, that's really only coating the ends of your hair. Even if you scrunch all the way up, not as much product is reaching the root area, which can cause a lot of root frizz. Okay, let's take a look at my hair before I actually diffuse. So it's funny how this curl, even though I didn't finger coil it, just from moving around, it did start to really take its shape. But I wonder if that's because my hair does have some curl memory from all the past routines that I have done really enhancing the curls. It knows which direction it wants to go. I've actually done a whole video on curl memory. It's really interesting. You should check it out. But this one's not. That one's still kind of going zigzag, which is fine. For diffusing, I'm just using my Curlsmith Defrizzion hair dryer, and we're going to primarily hover diffuse. I am going to use the prongs to reach the root area just so I can actually get my hair dry today. But I'm not really going to be using the diffuser to enhance the curl pattern. So diffusing in itself is one of the biggest forms of curl manipulation because it will actually set your hair's hydrogen bonds, which are those bonds that are responsible for your curl shape, and they automatically reset when our hair dries. And when you're diffusing by doing techniques like scrunch diffusing or pixie diffusing, or basically enhancing your curl shape or curl pattern as it's drying, that will lock in that shape. That's one of the main benefits of diffusing that I always talk about. So if you're not doing any of those curl enhancing techniques and simply hovering, then you're basically setting your hair in its current state. So if you like the look of your curl pattern when your hair is a little bit more stretched out, when it's wet, or if you want to really maintain a lot of length and you don't want any shrinkage, then hovering alone is going to give you that effect. So you're just basically setting it in its current position. Hover diffusing definitely takes more time, and it's also pretty tough on your arm. My arm was getting really tired doing this because you're having to just kind of hover around and move around your head. If you have the Curlsmith dryer, it has a little kickstand on the back of the hair dryer to where you can prop it up on a flat surface. So you could set the dryer down and let the air just reach your hair. So you could just stand beside it, or you could flip your head upside down and just stand in front of it. Or you could lay your dryer down if you don't have the Curlsmith one and just have it near your hair. So that is another way to do it. I do still want some root volume, so I am going to flip my head upside down and then hover around my head. And I'm also going to flip my hair from side to side some. That way I'm at least drying my hair away from the root. Now that is technically a form of manipulation, but again, this is a low manipulation routine, not a no manipulation routine, just to pull the hair away from the scalp and away from those roots so it will actually have a little bit of lift. Now, in comparison to my usual routines, I'm typically using the diffuser prongs to really lift the roots up and setting them in place. That's also creating more curl enhancement, so it's sort of tightening the curl pattern at the root when I do that technique, which helps create more root lift and volume. I'm now finished diffusing and my hair is still in the cast. I also let it sit for maybe 10 or 15 minutes, and this is how it's looking. It's definitely different than my normal routines, but I do need to scrunch out the cast, and my hair still feels a little bit damp. It's crazy how long it took my hair to dry. To fluff it out, I'm just going to fluff out the roots to get a little more volume and scrunch out the cast. Now I'm just going to use my diffuser to finish scrunching out some of that cast and also to dry out the remaining bit of moisture. So now all of the cast is pretty much softened up. With the Ouidad gel, it always looks a little bit wet still on day one, and that's just because it has long-lasting strong hold and it does a really good job at locking in moisture in the hair. So I find that it will look even better by the end of the day or into day 2 once that moisture fully evaporates and it softens up a little bit. Here's how the low manipulation routine looks compared to my results from my usual higher manipulation routine. The biggest difference that I notice in my hair is I have a looser curl pattern, obviously, but my curl pattern looks much different than usual. It almost looks a little bit tighter and less clumped. I don't know if it's because I normally do techniques that really help to clump my curls. I like to kind of customize the size of my curl clumps, but my overall clump size is just much smaller. I know that I naturally have smaller curl clumps, but it's interesting to see how when they're not overly clumped, they really do kind of spring up a bit on their own. So overall, have a different shape to my hair, which I feel like is the biggest difference with this routine. It's much flatter and I have less volume. It doesn't look sparse or thin, which is nice. I still have fullness, and I think that's because my hair isn't overly clumped. I still have fullness within, like my hair is not looking see-through, but my overall shape is wildly different, and the shape that I create when I style makes a big difference on how my results turn out, especially diffusing. That's where I really get in there and create that shape that I usually have to my hair. As promised, I wanted to give you a day 2 update on how my hair held up. It actually looks really nice, but it's definitely more frizzy than it usually is when I do my typical routine and a little bit more stringy, which makes complete sense because when I normally style with more manipulation techniques like brush styling and finger coiling, I get much more curl clumps, and curl clumps help to hold frizz in. The hold definitely softened up a lot. I always like my results day 2 of Ouidad because it really softens up. I do prefer my next day results when I do more manipulation techniques because my hair lasts longer. So I would say that is the biggest trade-off here. One other thing I wanted to mention is this problem area that I have where there's a lot of little short baby hairs is definitely frizzier because I usually finger coil this area. So when I don't finger coil it, it ends up kind of just doing its own thing and I get all of these grays sticking out and it just makes more frizz. So sometimes finger coiling can really help tuck in frizz, just like I mentioned with curl clumps hiding frizz. Well, I hadn't planned on doing a day 3 result update, but I definitely felt like I needed to show you this because this is wildly different than my usual day 3 without refreshing. My hair is definitely much frizzier and it's bothering me a lot more than it usually is on day 3. So saving time on wash day without styling definitely can cost you more time on your refresh days if you feel like you need to refresh to fix it. If I just put it up or something and hide it, that's totally fine. It still saved me time. For some reason, it feels more dry. I think it's the combination of the heat protectant and the gel. The heat protectant almost sort of was like a foam where it was a little bit sudsy in the hair, and I think that's contributing to my hair feeling a little bit dry, which I think would be good for those of you who get over moisturized hair from the Ouidad gel. It's definitely worth a try with that combo, but for me, my hair gets a little dry when using this combo. So this is my second time using it, and I definitely noticed this last time where by day 3, I felt like my hair needed some more moisture, which normally doesn't happen because the Ouidad gel is very moisturizing. If you're newer to your curls or you just find it really confusing doing all these different techniques and you don't really know what works, then I highly recommend checking out my curly hair tracker and planner. If you haven't already downloaded it, this is a game-changing tool, especially when you're trying to figure out what works and kind of track your results. It's a really organized way to keep it straight. It's in a spreadsheet format, so you can track and plan out your wash days. So it's a guided template. It asks you a series of questions about what your hair is currently doing. Then you get into planning out the products that you're going to use to address those specific needs. And then you get to track and analyze your results. And I ask you specific questions about how your hair looks and feels. And then you can mark whether if you like your results or not. So you can look back and see every single time when you did the finger coiling technique, you liked your results versus when you skipped it, you didn't like your results. So that's what you can track and really gauge what routine works for you. So I will have the link to download that in the description box down below. If you're like me and have a lot of those problem areas that do require some tweaking in your routine, especially if you want your curls to last longer and just be more consistent throughout, then check out the video I did recently. It's all about how to get more consistent curls throughout. So we talk about how to tweak your routine based on your hair's texture, your hair's porosity, and your curl pattern so you have a more uniform look if that's what you're going for, or to address the different health needs of your hair in different sections. So that video will be linked right here, and I will talk to you over there. Bye, everyone.